everyone, and welcome to the Educated Black Female Perspective. My name is Dr. Shawania Marshall, and I am super excited about this episode tonight, episode 10, the Era of NIL. Tonight, I have an amazing guest who's going to collaborate with me, giving us the coach's perspective. His name is Coach Clinton Smith Jr. How are you doing, Coach Smith?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Look, I need to ask that question again. You sound a little tired. Let's try
I'm good. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to roll.
All right, awesome. I just want to make sure we kept that excitement. So I am truly excited to have Coach Smith. He is also my fraternity brother. He is a coach at Tuskegee University. So I am extra elated tonight to have him on. And so as I shared, our topic tonight is all about the era of NIL. So before I begin, I want to share a little bit about my guest, just so you can have more insight into who he is. So Coach Clinton Smith possesses a plethora of experience coaching, and he possesses education that makes him a great asset. He is a graduate of Alabama State University, where he obtained his bachelor's and master's in physical education. He served as a high school football coach for 14 years, and he is now serving in his 5th year as a college football coach. Coach Smith has spent the last 5 years serving as the director of football operations, a football recruiting coordinator, wide receivers coach, and quarterback coach for Tuskegee University football. All right, let me give a shout out to that HBCU right there, Tuskegee University. All right, and so I do want to add, absolutely, represent, absolutely. So I do want to add that Coach Smith, during his coaching journey, he has helped to develop 2 NFL drafted quarterbacks, and he has also helped lead his teams to a SWAC championship, along with helping one team become a SWAC runner-up. It is also very important to acknowledge that Coach Smith is a graduate of the NFL Coaches Academy. So to everyone, without further ado, Coach Smith and I are going to get down to business. All right, Coach Smith. So we're going to talk about the era of NIL. So I do want to share this with everyone who's listening before we start discussing. I want everyone to understand when we talk about NIL, name, image, and likeness, this affords student athletes the opportunity to profit off of their name, their image, and their likeness, their personal brand. This can be done through branding deals. This can be done through what we call collectives. So at the university level, whether you have boosters, NIL clubs, money goes into this pot and they can decide to distribute it among student athletes, however they deem appropriate. They also have what's called revenue sharing. And this is where money that's generated from things like ticket sales that they can also use as that additional layer to also pay student athletes. So Coach Smith, now that I kind of shared with people about what NIL stands for and the different types, what were your thoughts when you first heard about NIL becoming legal in some states back in, this was July of 2021?
Right. It was a shock to me, but I've always thought that the kids should at least get some kind of monetary things just because they're playing and they're putting their bodies on the line every day, year round. So I've always thought just from my perspective that they should get something. A lot of kids in college, they get back their Pell Grant money, or they get back their, the school cost of living or whatever the case may be. But I've always thought that the kids should get something back, because, you're making a lot of money off these kids, with the home games, away games, the bowl games, the playoff games, all of that stuff is being generated into that school. So I've always thought that the kids should be able to get something given back to them for their hard work and their dedication throughout the years that they're there. So yes, ma'am.
I,
Um,
oh,
uh, I'm trying to figure out. So I'm on the D2 level, and I'm probably jumping the gun right
that's
here.
okay.
So I'm
Go
on the
ahead.
D2 level. So we deal with it, but we don't deal with it a lot. And like you said, with the name, image, and likeness, branding, we do have some guys. We've had some guys in the past that have did hoodies, or they have did some kind of clothing line, with their football uniform or something of that nature. So we had a quarterback about 3 years ago. He was NIL through the potato chips, Ruffles potato chips. So we've had little small stuff like that, and I got guys, I got friends that's on the Division I level. That they have talked to me about some of the stuff that they have been going through, with that big time NIL stuff. So it's out there and it's there, and I don't think it's gonna change. I think it needs to get better. And I know it's gonna be a question that you're gonna ask me, so I'm gonna wait till you ask me that question.
Well, I do want to
I know
first.
it's coming.
Absolutely. But I do want to say, when you were talking about earlier, that you agree that student athletes should get paid. I totally have always felt the same way you did. They are playing these sports and they are giving it their all. And when I see
Right,
universities make so much money, and I'm talking about a lot of these universities, especially D1 schools, making millions. And so, and this is kind
right,
of going into another topic, but when I saw how one of the most famous coaches of all times went to Congress this year about it, it really bothered
right.
me, because I'm
Absolutely.
thinking, you were at this elite university, University of Alabama, and I'm just going to call it out and say it while we're here.
Right,
It
right,
it was okay when you were coaching and making money, but now that kids, student athletes, can profit off of their name, image, and likeness, what bothered me the most was you didn't have any reservations about saying, well, coaches' salaries should be regulated. But now don't get me wrong, I
absolutely.
do believe this process needs to have more structure. But what bothered me the most was
Right,
you never had any complaints about, oh, coaches are making too much money, we need to put a cap on that. But now that student athletes are making all this money, this is an issue. So I'm
right,
gonna leave that right there, but I felt like that
right,
needed to be added added in. But you mentioned that one of your players that played and that actually was engaged in the NIL deal. I think that's important for families to know, because I believe sometimes there's a
right,
misconception that only D1 athletes can get an NIL deal, and that's not the case.
right,
And so, thank you for bringing that
right,
up, because parents need to be aware. There may be times where student athletes get that offer at a D2 or a D3, but that doesn't mean that your
right,
child can't capitalize on a potential branding deal. It's just all about
right,
doing your research, because this is what I continue to share with families, even if they don't have someone representing them. You can literally look at, hey, what are some of the names of the local businesses in the area? What that may be a
right,
fit or a match for my child. That's where you definitely
right,
want to take the opportunity to do, like, look at your local businesses, because it may not be a Nike, it may not be an Adidas, but it doesn't mean that you can't look locally to try to secure a partnership for your child. So thank you for
right,
sharing that.
right, right,
So
right. Got you.
absolutely. All right. So when we talk about high school NIL deals versus college, those two look
Mhm.
very different. And so it's very important when it comes down to families and student athletes understanding that. So, why is this, in your opinion, something that parents need to really try to make sure they understand if they are considering allowing their child to sign an NIL deal, just understanding the difference between the two?
The difference between high school and college.
Right, right. When it comes down to NIL deals,
Right.
for
Yeah.
example, like you, and I'll just use Georgia for example. Student athletes in Georgia, they have to follow the guidelines for the Georgia High School Athletic Association. So when you get to that collegiate level in Georgia, you follow the NCAA. Their regulations are different. You get what I'm saying? So
Right.
just in your
Right.
professional coaching opinion, why is it so important for parents, whether they're high school parents or whether they're, I'm sorry, parents of a high school student athlete or parents of a college student athlete, to make sure they understand the difference between those NIL deals at those levels?
Right. Um, and I use my nephew for an example. I'm not gonna say his name and where he go to school at, but he's playing big time SEC football right now. And like I said, he graduated from a high school in Alabama. And when he got to that university, like, okay, here comes the NIL stuff. So my sister, and this goes back to the parents, like my sister, and this is what a lot of parents got to understand. Like, you have to make sure, when these, and this is my opinion, I think that when those kids are getting that money, when they're getting that lump sum of money, you need to take care of it. And what I mean by that is, and just like I told my sister, like, hey, like, okay, if you don't go to the NFL, what else is he going to, what is he going to do if he's, just got all this money and just threw it away. So I think that, me personally, I think high school is a little extreme, and this is my personal opinion. I personally don't agree with the high school kids, you know, basically, getting that type of money. I think the older that the kids get, which is college and above, I think it's fine because those kids kind of understand, they get a better understanding of financial literacy, and somebody can coach them up on, budgeting their money, putting their money up, investing in it at their age. I just think when it comes to high school, and this is my opinion, when it comes to high school, I think that it's more of the parent than it is the student athlete. I
Okay.
think it's just a little bit too early. I think it's just extremely a little bit too early for a 15, 16-year-old to be getting that type of money. And then you don't even know, like, you're getting all this NIL money in high school. Like, you don't even know if you're going to college to play football. Like, you don't even know if you might get injured, you might get hurt. And it's the same thing happens in college. But I think, the older they get, I think the better off they are. I just think that, when, kids that early, I just don't agree with them just getting that type of money in IL. And I really think that's why they hadn't started it in Alabama. I think they have it in Georgia. I think they have it in Florida. But I think when it comes to the high school kids, I think it's more of the parent than it is the student athlete. And I give you a perfect example with us. Like, we have had kids. Like, now you got all these agents, these handlers, these high school handlers, and we deal with it. Like, we deal with it on the Division 2 level. Like, and it happens, and we knew it was going to happen. Like, we'll have, the Division 1 teams, they're going to get the best kids out our conference every year, and I don't blame them. Like, you go from possibly not having or getting NIL money to going to a Division 1 school and they giving you NIL money. Like, we push the kid. Like, if he's a good kid and he's doing everything right and he's doing, and the parent and great parents, and like, we understand it. Like, we'll push those kids out the door. Like, hey man, look, go get it. Like, hey, go get your money. You know what I'm saying? But you're doing it the right way. But then you'll have kids that, we don't even talk to the parents. We talk to the agent. We'll talk to the agent, and the agent is making the negotiations, and we don't want to talk to the agent. We want to talk to the parents to kind of make sure the parents understand and know exactly what's going on. And these are freshmen in college. These are sophomore kids in college that decide they want to jump in the transfer portal, and 9 times out of 10 we don't even talk to the parents. We talk to the agent. So, but I think it's, me personally, I just think it's just a little bit too early with the high school kids, because some kids I've seen kids that have been stars at their high school, and then they get to college and they don't even want to play football no more. So I just think that it's just a little bit too early for high school kids, and I'd rather see a college kid, get that NIL other than a high school kid.
Now, you said a lot there, so I want to make sure I'll unpack, because you said a lot of good things. I do want to go back to the part about Alabama. You are right. For high school students, and this is something that I did want to share, is actually going to come up later, because I'm originally from Alabama. I knew once I got certified in Georgia, I said, I have to get certified in my home state. Here's the crazy thing. I actually contacted the Secretary of State, because you have to go through that office for every state to get certified. And I'm talking to people who are in positions that are supposed to know their own policies. And I was told, well, it's not legal. It's not legal on the college level, nor at the high school level. So I did some more research. And then initially, when NIL was actually legalized in Alabama, Governor Kay Ivey, former Governor Kay Ivey, she was like, no, we're not going to have it. Then it got repealed. So for college athletes, it is legal. But for high school students, you are right, it's not. So now, when we talk about students in the high school level, what I have seen, and just doing research, spending a lot of time this summer, I tend to notice if high school students do get those NIL deals in high school, they're typically like brand marketing deals. Even like, and I always kind of reference Juju Lewis. He didn't even get like that lucrative marketing deal. I believe he was a junior or senior. He's the young kid from Carrollton who was the QB that went to Colorado.
Absolutely.
So he was great, but he did not get that major branding deal until he was a junior or senior. So by the time you get to that level, you are a little bit more mature. So I applaud parents that even if they're ninth or 10th graders, saying, hey, let me start off with a brand marketing deal. Even if it's not like, hey, your deliverable is receiving cash. It's like, hey, I'm able to build my brand. And I think that for mature ninth graders and 10th graders is actually a good idea. And so it's like you talked about the financial piece, the financial literacy. That is a huge component that every student athlete, I truly believe, needs to make sure that they invest in making sure they have someone to help guide them. And you're absolutely right. Because I am a former teacher, so I always wear my educator hat. In that middle grade transition to ninth grade, they're still impressionable. They're still learning. So to get an NIL deal that may be lucrative, that's something where, and it's even with high school students, they still have to have their parents sign that contract. The parents have to hold their hand through the entire process. So the good thing is they still have that parent guiding them through it, making the decisions, because they are, they're in essence the adult. So what I tend to see is, I believe that even if you say, hey, as a ninth grade, 10th grader, if I work on building my brand, it's not where it's a lucrative deal, but I'm mature enough to understand, hey, as I build my brand, there are certain things I have to make sure that I work on, making sure how I post is appropriate, because coaches are looking. It's teaching them not only the even though it may not be the business side of getting money in their pocket, there's still a deliverable that they're having to make sure, whether it's, giving a shout out to that business, and then that business is giving them something. So it's like they get that sense of the business side, but it's just not, oh, I'm getting all this money in my pockets that I don't know what to do. But I wanted to touch on that, but financial literacy, I totally agree. Because we continue to hear so many players at that collegiate level where they're getting all this money, and it's like, who's there to help them with making sure they're managing it? Because I don't know if you saw this, and I'm gonna kind of bring it back home, because I know this is when we could talk a lot about the young kid that went to Colorado that ended up transferring to LSU. There's this YouTube video of him where he was apparently buying these expensive bags for his female friend. And that was one of the topics of
I saw
conversation
that. I
people
saw
were
that.
talking about. And I was like, I really hope, my first thought was, I really hope that he has someone that can sit down and talk to him, because if he's blowing money like this, I mean, this was like over $10,000 on bags. In my head, I'm
Oh
thinking,
yeah.
I hope
Oh
that
yeah.
he's actually managing, or someone is helping him to invest that. So you are absolutely right about having the
Right.
right people on your side, the right people in your circle,
Right.
because college students and high school students, they both need that. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that.
And I yeah, now I do, like I do it now. Like I said, I do agree with the high school's kids with the branding. I think I just saw something. The Elite 11 quarterbacks. I think some of them guys got like Nike deals.
Oh wow.
These were senior high school guys. I think, I don't know. I seen something on Twitter where they were. I think it's like the Nike regionals, uh, Elite 11. It's like 8, 9, 10 guys that got Nike did. Now I'm with that. Like I'm 100% with that right there. It's just the bulk. It's just the bulk, just cash money for the young guys for me. But if
And
they're
it's really rare.
branding, whether it's, yeah, like if it's Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, like they're getting their brand out there. Like I'm all for that right there. I'm all for that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank you for sharing that part, because what I tend to see, you don't really see too many young kids with those lucrative deals. And so, I totally agree at that age. They may not be at that maturity level for them to process, but
Right.
that's why the families are there. But I literally was trying to like do my own research. There are very few at that. I've seen that there was an eighth grader. So you have an eighth grader, you have some ninth graders, but it's not that many. It's not that many that have landed
Right.
that deal. So the like we talked about, the branding, even if it's not money that you're getting, the opportunity to brand. So absolutely. All right, so we're going to go on to the next part of the discussion. So we're going to talk a little bit more about high school athletes. Um, so when you think about NIL in high school, because it is legal in some states, what impact do you
Mhm.
feel that NIL may have with student athletes who are struggling academically? Because I'm that educator first. So I'm all about being a
Ooh.
student athlete. So when you have athletes that land these NIL deals, what impact do you believe it could have on these students academically?
Ooh. Good question. Um, Let me put my educator hat on real quick. Okay, so basically you're asking, these kids that's getting all this NIL money, but they're struggling in school. Like, what's the impact that it will have on them?
Right, and even for those that,
Uh,
and even for those that may get a branding deal, because sometimes with that it comes a lot of popularity, it comes
right,
a lot of attention, and
right.
so just wearing the educator hat, just how could that potentially impact them from the academic side? What are your thoughts?
I think it really depends on the family. And I think it depends on the kid also. Um, I just number one, me being an old high school coach, if you don't have the grades, you can't play anyway. So that's number one. But I've also as educators, I think also we have to stop passing kids along. Like we have to stop. And like I said, I'm listen. Taught I taught elementary, middle school, and high school for 14 years, and I just think that don't want to vent on it, but I've seen kids that have gotten passed along just because they can play sports, or just because they just want to, put them in a different situation and give them an opportunity to go off and be better. But again, I think at the end of the day, I think we still kind of setting them up for failure, because once they leave and get out on their own, they're going to struggle. And now, you're dealing with, you deal with school systems now where And you know how it is. Like you taught for years. If the kids don't pass, like they'll fire the teacher. They'll fire the teacher and let the and hey, like get a kid extra credit work and let him make up his work. And I think we're setting the kids up for failure right there. So I think, you know, with that being said, uh, um, you know, I think that in high school, if you don't have a certain GPA, you don't need to get NIL. You don't need to get a branding deal. You know, they need to put I think they need to put that in the clause, because again, at the end of the day, is no need for this kid to get a Nike deal and he's not doing what he's supposed to do in the classroom. Like, how is that going to help him you know, be successful? Because if you pass him along, if you pass him and pass him along, it's gonna happen in college. And then he's gonna get up there, they're gonna do the same thing. And then once he gets to the NFL or NBA or whatever the case may be, it's going to continue to happen. But I think that they need to, if they're gonna do high school NIL deals, it needs to be a GPA added into that thing. That's my personal opinion. And I think that if you add the GPA thing in there, I think that the kids will work harder, because they know that, hey, if I don't pass my classes, if I don't make a certain score on this ACT score or this SAT score, man, I need to study harder. You know, my brand is gonna get cut off. So I think that needs to be in the clause with grades and GPAs at that age. I think that's, yeah.
That right there is extremely a powerful point, because as we talk about being educators, and that's one thing that would always break my heart when I would see students that could perform on the court and on the field, but when it came down to academics, there was that lack of that support pushing that kid. Because I could be the teacher in the classroom pushing the student, but if I didn't have that support from the coach, and I was blessed at my first school, like the football coach, when I tell you, like, him and I could always communicate. I'm like, look, I need you to talk to this player because I'm talking to him in the classroom. It has to be that, hey, I got the parent is staying in my ear, I got the teacher and the coach. But you're absolutely right. And hopefully maybe the athletic associations for, within the different states where it is approved, because technically they have autonomy to put some type of clause like that in there. Because essentially, if our kids can't graduate, if they don't have the grades, ultimately, regardless to how good they are at a sport, the sport will only carry them so far. And that's something that I will always preach. I'll preach it now as an educator, as a new sports agent, and that's one thing about my agency, as I continue to talk to parents, like, I want to know, like, what are your child's grades like? Because even with my company, it's about ability to legacy. And part of your legacy is being able to academically, but intellectually function, not only in high school, but beyond high school and the real world. Because there will come a time, even if you make it to that professional level, that you have to be able to survive in real life. And if you don't have those tools from the academic side, essentially you are going to struggle. And and we've seen athletes who went to the NFL, and we could name some, and I'm just thinking one off the top of my head. Like, it breaks my heart to see what happens whether there was an injury or they had a bad experience on the team and they went to another team and it just kind of bounced from team to team. But then after that, they struggle, whether it was, okay, I didn't get it in college, I can't play football anymore. But then they started to spiral and get in trouble with the law. So you're absolutely right. Academics is a huge and very important component. So we'll see. We'll see how things continue to evolve, because
And to hit on that point, and I know I'm jumping up to college. So I actually like what Deion Sanders does at Colorado. So he has in his clause with the NILs at his school, and it's probably at some of the other schools too, like if they miss practice, like he's treating it just like the NFL. If you miss practice, your NIL is cutting. They cut certain dollars. If you miss practice, you miss weight room, you miss a class, you fail a class. Like if you do anything that's not Colorado standards, like he cuts their NIL money. And I think that's exactly what everybody needs to do, because now those guys that's leaving college and going to the next level, or guy or girl, they're going to the next level to make all that money. It's gonna teach them how, like, hey, like if you don't do what you're supposed to do, like you miss practice in the NFL, you probably cut. You probably cut, but they're gonna cut you. Like they looking for a reason to cut your money. And I was on Twitter the other day. Now I was on Instagram the other day, and I remember when Randy Moss, he didn't want to do his after the game interviews, and he was like, "Yeah, the NFL just cut me 20, they just fined me $25,000 because I don't want to do interview." You know what I'm saying? But all of that stuff is in your contract. It's laid out for you. Like, okay, if you don't want to do it, like your money's gonna get cut. And that's the same. And that's what I like what Dion is doing at Colorado, dealing with his NIL. And then it makes the kids, hey, man, I got to go to class. I got to be at practice. I got to be at the weight room. I can't miss team meeting, position meetings. Not only I want to make myself better, but if I don't be there, like, he gonna cut my money. So, that's a positive thing. I think also that he does over there, and I think everybody need to do some of that nature. As far as because some of these kids are making more than the coaches. So
you are right. I'm glad you brought that up, because it teaches them what a little aspect of contracts,
right.
because there are certain stipulations in contracts, and it lets you, it really is an eye opener too for them to see, did I really read my contract? And if I did read it, then that means, okay, I'm okay with them taking my money. But the NIL piece to it, so I'm glad you talked about that, is regardless of whether you have an agent, you have a lawyer, or you don't, when you decide to engage in an NIL deal, it is a business. It is ultimately a business. And so that's something that, whether, it's a student athlete at the high school level or the collegiate level, it's something that they have to understand, that even though it may not be something that fully a high school student can understand, but the parent can. And just part of the process of an agent or a parent, or, just helping them understand, like, hey, you may not know the logistics, but at least understand, like, if you're going to do this, you have to be sure that you want to do it, because there's certain things that you are representing and you have to stand for, especially when you have that brand partnership with a company that's trusting you to deliver just like they're delivering. So great. Thank you for sharing that. So you moved on to college. That's where I was going next. So I'm curious to know, because you talked about D2 and D1, having friends that coach at the D1 level, but having your own experiences with D2. How has this introduction of NIL, do you believe, may have shifted or impacted the relationship between coaches and those student athletes who are getting those deals? Have you kind of heard of any experiences, or just something that your friends may have shared with you, how it may have impacted their relationships?
Nah, well, honestly, the guys that I know that coach Division I ball, 99% of those guys want to go to the NFL. So I think that they're not gonna do, just as far as relationship wise, because again, going from the collegiate level to the NFL, like it's still an interview. So you can't be a butthole, and then when these NFL scouts and these NFL coaches start coming around, and then you're expecting a coach to vouch for you, because even the two guys that I got in the NFL right now, like those scouts called me, and I was coaching college ball. I hadn't coached Cam and Jacoby in 8 years, 7 years. And when those guys got an opportunity to go to the NFL, like the scout called me, multiple scouts called. And this was weeks and months before, the draft was coming along. And these guys was calling, and they wanted to know character, and they wanted to know, discipline problems in high school. They wanted to know about their family. How was the mom? How was the dad? How many sisters does he have? How many brothers? How many siblings do they have? Like they wanted to know everything. And those guys those guys drove down to Hillcrest, and I wasn't there, but I got a call from the principal. Like the Ram scout drove down there and was like, "Hey, like I want to see Jacoby's discipline report."
Wow.
Just so happy he didn't have anything in there. He didn't, but I know I'm jumping off the gun a little bit, but I'm saying like, so it's still a interview. So I think the impact between players and coaches when it comes to the NIL, I don't, just talking to some of my guys, they don't deal with a bunch of guys that's just knuckleheads like that, because at the end of the day, they know that NIL money is going to stop once their college eligibility is up. So now, what are they going to do? What are they going to do after that? Are they going to get a shot at the NFL? And it's just like going from high school to college and going college to the NFL. It's still an interview every day. Still an interview. Like they're going to call those coaches and ask, like, man, what's up with this kid? Like, do I need to take this kid? Like, do we need to draft this kid? Like, so I haven't had even at Tuskegee, and I was at Miles College for a year, and I was at this is my 5th year going into Tuskegee. Like we don't deal with a lot of NIL stuff like that, but even the kids that did have a little bit of branding, or we had a quarterback that was with Ruffles potato chips. Like those guys wouldn't, they wasn't just off the wall like that. Just between players and coaches' relationship. And then, like I say, even dealing with some of the guys, dealing with my nephew, and his coaches, like I haven't seen a kid that was just straight off the ledge like that, because again, at the end of the day, they still want to make it, they still want to go up a level. They still want to make it to the NFL. And they know like those coaches are a big part of them reaching that NFL caliber, and that's kind of how it is. Like, I got one of my guys coach at he's the DC at Arkansas. My other guys, the D-line coach at Arkansas. The defensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, we played together at Alabama State, so we talk about NILs. Like I know a whole bunch of guys, and they just hadn't had just a kid, because they all still want to go to that next level. So I hadn't really had a chance to, nobody has really just told me like, hey man, like this kid getting all this money, he just, he ain't gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? He's not a good kid. He's not a good teammate, so I haven't dealt with that type yet.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you talked about character though, because I that's something that, families, student athletes, we talk about a lot, but in, especially, in this segment, I really truly believe that's something that families and student athletes need to remember. Like your character, like your name speaks for itself, and you just never know. And I'm glad you shared those examples, whether it's going to the collegiate level, NFL level, how those relationships that you've built along the way, the people that you've had to work with, whether it was your coaches, how they may end up having to serve as a reference for you. So character is everything. So thank you for sharing that. And before I forget, I want to share the comment. Somebody said, proud of you, classmates. So I want to make sure, they will give you a shout out. Eric, President 5, whoever he is, he's giving you a shout out. So absolutely.
That's my high school classmate.
So I had to tell you that. So I want to kind of bring up a actual real life scenario that kind of ties into this whole NIL and how when it first started. How, there have been several situations where there have been lawsuits, but as we're talking about colleges, there was a situation with a player from University of Georgia back in 2024. So he actually signed an NIL deal in December of 2024 and jumped in the portal of January 2025. Yes. So he jumped in the portal, went to Missouri. Now, mind you, he signed this lucrative deal for $500,000. So as we're talking about, to people who are listening, this is a business. When you sign a contract, this is a binding agreement. So you want to make sure you read the fine print. So here's what has happened right now, still unresolved. So UGA is suing the player to recover what's called liquidated damages for $390,000. And so the player has countersued them, saying that agreement he signed was a non-binding agreement. So just hearing the dynamics of that situation, what are your thoughts? Because there are multiple cases that have ended up in court, players, universities, but just hearing that, what is your mindset and what are you thinking as it relates to what can you share with families and student athletes when you make a decision to sign a deal? But this young athlete signed in December of 2024 and then jumped in the portal of January 2025. Now, I have some major thoughts about that, but please share.
Yeah. So I think I seen a coach, and I'll be on Twitter all the time. I'll be on Twitter all the time. But I seen a coach that said, I can't think of what Division I coach it was, but he was like, okay, if that situation right there happens, the kid needs to pay the school back. I think that was like a big. I think that was kind of like a one of the things that he was talking about that probably needed to happen, because you can't sit up here and sign with this school in December and get all of this money, and then in January you get all the money, you go in January, then you leave and go to another university. That, my opinion, that kid need to pay the school back a certain percentage. That's my opinion. Now, another thing that I think that can possibly happen, okay, hey, you want to eliminate that? Okay, well, don't pay them till after the season. Don't pay them till after the season. So now they got even with the because we just dealt with it last year, the portal window. So now that portal window, now where you can't even, so if you come in, you can't even get in the portal at a certain time no more. Like they cut it off right before spring practice start. Now we've had I've seen kids that have gotten in the portal where they can't get in the portal when the window closed, but after spring practice, the coach just part ways with that kid. We have dealt with that too. So now it's like, okay, the kid well, I can't even get in. The coach done kicked me out the team, or they have taken my scholarship away from me. And that's another thing, parents. Kids' scholarships goes year to year. It ain't 4 years no more. So those scholarships go from year to year, parents. Wow. So now that kid got cut right after spring ball, but the window of the portal has closed. So now these kids got to go in and get waivers, right? They have to go in and get waivers to get picked up by possible another university. So, but I think that if they gonna jump ship like that and they gonna get all that money at the beginning and they jump ship, something has to be in there where, okay, you're gonna do that, well, you got to pay me back a certain percentage of that money that you got to go back to the school.
And when I read about it, his name was Damon Wilson II, and I'm thinking, regardless, I'm just thinking the dynamics of that situation. And I mean, I don't know what led to what, but in my head, this is just me thinking, how did you not know you weren't considering going to Missouri? Like, you're in December and you jump ship in January. And I'm sure if he was going to get paid by Missouri, Georgia was definitely probably playing him. But this is just my opinion. But it's those situations like that, unfortunately, that ruins it for other athletes, because when you hear situations like that, and that is another reason why there needs to be tighter, stricter regulations around this. And I know they're working on it. They're trying to, fine tune it, and this is still evolving. But it's just situations like that really make it bad. Now, NIL isn't going anywhere. That's just bottom line. It is
No,
it
no,
has
it's not.
even the playing field. So it's not leaving, but I just hate to hear situations like that. And I even more hate to hear it when it's people that look like me. Because I'm like, come on now. We can't be
Absolutely.
doing that. Like,
Absolutely.
it's not right, period. But
Absolutely.
anyway, so thank you for sharing your perspective.
Right.
So we got a few more minutes. So I want to make sure we get to some of the other questions that I want to make sure we don't miss, that we do that we give the audience the opportunity to hear from you about. So I want to talk about the NFL Coaches Academy. So I noticed that when you were sharing with me things about you, you graduated from the NFL Coaches Academy. Talk to us about that, because I think sometimes, you know, people don't always realize that when people are coaching at HBCUs, you don't know how much of a powerful asset they are and what they bring to the table. Because I'm reading your resume and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so impressive.
Right.
I'm super excited to ask them, because the dream of young, male athletes, if they're playing football, is always like, hey, I want to make it to the NFL. So talk about your experience. Why did you even apply to go through the academy, and what would you share to young athletes who have those
Right.
aspirations?
So and again, I'm still kind of fresh in this college thing. So honestly, my assistant athletic director, Miss Rogers, Miss Deborah Rogers, she's our assistant athletic director. She's our compliance officer. She's chief of staff. She got all these titles. But she came to me and she was like, Coach, she was like, you need to apply for the NFL, NCAA NFL Coaches Academy. So I'm like, okay, like, what is it? Boom, boom, boom. So she sends me this link, and I started researching and looking at it. And I'm like, man, like, only 25 guys get picked for it. And I'm sitting up here like, the whole time I'm like, I'm at D2 Tuskegee. Like, these people ain't finna pick me. They are not finna pick me. But I ended up applying for it. And they sent me the letter to come out. Everything was paid for. It was in Charlotte. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it was no, it wasn't. It was in Indianapolis. It was in Indianapolis, and they always do it right before the NFL Combine. So that last night we was there. We were at Lucas Oil Stadium, and we was up in the press box, and they was setting up everything for the NFL Combine. So we actually got to see that too. But it was, man, when I tell you, it was. I want to do it again. Like I applied for it again. I'm gonna apply for it again this year. Like I wouldn't mind going every year, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because probably 10% of that whole experience was about football. The other 90% of that conference, or the deal, it was more of psychological stuff. It was just building your brand, knowing how to interview for big time college coaches jobs. Um Man, it didn't have any. I was there for 4 days. The only football that we talked was the defensive back coach from the Cincinnati Bengals came in and talked about defensive back play. Everything else didn't have anything to do with football. Like how do you dress for interviews? Like what are some of the questions that they ask? The day that we got in there, the first day we got in there, doctor, I can't think of her name. It was a black lady. She was the lead psychologist for the NFL. And she walked in, and we all walked in there, and the first thing came out her mouth was, "You all are killing yourselves." So we all sitting around like, I ain't killing my, like, what is she talking about? She was just talking about like the long hours that we put in as coaches. She gave us different tactics on decompressing from coaching. She talked about staying off your cell phone, going to bed at night with your room completely dark. She was like, a lot of you guys thinking that y'all be sleep and you don't. Your TV be on, you're on your cell phone. Like that light would keep you. Like she just talked about all of that stuff about just just your mindset while being a coach. It was female NFL coaches was there. It was female collegiate coaches was there. And it was coaches from all over the place, from Division I all the way down to junior college and NAIA ball. So we all kind of was there and putting our perspective and giving our ideas about where we're at and what we want to do. But it was listen, it was wonderful. I'm telling you, like, it was. We talked to Tony Dungy came. He talked, like, I'm literally sitting.
Wow. I love
right
him.
Here, like right here. Yeah, I'm sitting like right here in front of this dude. And the president brought the president from, I think it was Villanova. The president of Villanova was there with his head football coach, and they brought the entire hiring committee to just talk about, like, why did they hire this dude? What did he do to land that job? And they just gave you pointers on how to land the big time job. And they also and it was an all white. They were all white, and they just talked about just hiring African American guys and women and what everybody needs to do to try to land a big job, and why we always get the bad end of the stick when it comes to hiring. We had a session on that. So it was cool. It was nice. And we all created a group me. So we all still text each other in the group me. Guys was looking for jobs. Like, we handed out resumes and everything. So it was nice. It was nice.
Well, it sounds like it. And so when I hear you talk about it, I see the excitement in your face, in your voice, because, like, I'm a football girl. So not only do I love watching college football or, a high school football game or NFL, like, it gets me excited. So just hear you talk about it, I hear the excitement in your voice. But one of the things that you mentioned when you talked about the interviewing, and I know this doesn't tie to NIL, but the part, and I have to touch on it because we're talking about the NFL, the part that always breaks my heart every year is when they have vacancies, and I hear or know of people who interview who are qualified that are of the minority who don't get those positions. So for me, I wish I could have been in that room. I would have loved to have been in that room just to hear what they really had to share. Because they had, I forgot what they call the Rooney Rule. They have to do so many interviews. So it's like, I would have loved to have been in that room to hear, like, why is it that we are not getting those positions? Why is it that a certain percentage of the coaches in the NFL look like this? So, I mean, I know that had to be definitely powerful, but just being in the room, meeting the people, the experiences, congratulations on that, because that, you said they only selected 25. That is an honor. So 25. I am super proud of you. Shout out. Yes. That is exciting. So you are welcome. So as we get ready to close, I do want to ask one last question. Is there something from a coach's perspective, something that I may not have asked, or something that you feel like you want to share to student athletes as it relates to NIL that could be just, and I know you already shared a wealth of great information, but is anything that you would like to share that I may not have asked?
Just make sure, NIL means, it's an acronym for something. That's name, image, and likeness. And I'll give you another example. So the kid that I coached in high school, Jacoby Bryant, I'm gonna give you a prime example. So he went to the University of Kansas, All-American at the University of Kansas. So he called me one day and he was like, Coach, like, I'm the only All-American on the team. I don't have any NILs like the other guys do. And I was like, Jacoby, I said, what does NIL, and I'm an old school high school coach, so I was on his butt also, but I was like, what does NIL stand for? He was like, name, image, and likeness. I said, okay, you have the name. They call you the Black Mamba. You are the name of the team. You're the guy on their team. You're the highest recruit that Kansas done had in years. All right. I said, now let's talk about your image. I said, okay. I said, Jacoby, you got hair on your head, plaited. I said, one side is blonde, the other side is black. I said, name me one person that's going to put you in a commercial and your hair is blonde on one side and black on the other side. And he said, Coach, he's like, man, I didn't think about that. I said, now look, I'm not telling you to cut your hair, but make yourself look presentable. I said, these boosters, these people that own all these companies that want to put you in their gear, or they want to put you on their TV screen, or they want to do, like, you have to make yourself look presentable. And that's it. And you have the likeness. You're real big on social media. You got all these people following you on social media. Like, you are the guy. But once you fix that image part, like, you're gonna see a difference. And then he ended up landing like a Wendy's. He ended up landing like a Wendy's deal. So I'm like,
Wow.
he was like, Coach, man, like, he's like, Coach, you was right. And I'm like, dude, like, you got to understand these companies and what they're trying to do. They're trying to build their brand too. So, everything is about the internet now. It's about social media. It's about the internet. So you have to make yourself. I'm not asking you to cut your hair low and go wavelength. Like, okay, you got the hair on your head, man. Just keep your hair lined up, man. Make it look presentable. And at the end of the day, like, it's how you look out in the public. So I just stress to the parents, like, just make sure that you are, just make sure your child has the name, image, and the likeness. And don't take it for granted. I think that it's a good thing to have and to implement in the sports now. But I think it's also stipulations and guidelines that need to happen, so that these kids can make sure that they're not going, and the parents are going overboard, with the money and the branding and all that kind of stuff. So my thing is to student athletes is, hey man, go out and get it. It's out there to get, but it's a certain way to go get it. And I think, being smart about it and going about it the right way, I think that it will help you in the long run. Even in high school, you get a chance to go to college, you'll know how to handle and maintain yourself. And then the same thing is going from college to the NFL. You'll know how to maintain yourself because you have been dealing with it for so long. You'll know how to maintain and budget yourself and doing it the right way and give back. Like, when you guys get that NIL money, man, in college, like, give back to your high school. Give back to the Pee Wee program, the Pop Warner program that you was at. Like, put yourself out there. And that's another way to get your image out there and get your name and your likeness out there. Man, give back to the community. It was a kid in Birmingham. I forgot what school he's at, but he built a food truck venue downtown Birmingham. And I was like, man, like, that is crazy. I remember Jashawn Juckins, who played at Ohio State. He was at Ole Miss, then transferred to Ohio State. He's from Pike Road High School here in Alabama. Soon as he got his NIL money, like, he gave the football team a $10,000 check, just for equipment or whatever they needed. So, that's what it needs to be. It needs to be more about, if you get blessed with getting it, man, find a way to give something back to the people, to the programs that helped you get to where you're at. So, throwing a youth camp is always good. I see a lot of guys doing youth camps, which is always good. Free youth camps. They don't charge the kids. The kid that played here at Central Phoenix City, Cam Coleman, that's at Texas now. He did one at Phoenix City a couple weeks ago and gave all the kids Crocs after the camp. So doing things like that is always a plus, and it's always an eye opener for guys out in the community to be like, hey, okay, like, he's getting back to, and it also gives a way for the kids to be like, oh, if he can do it, then I definitely think that I can do it. So And that's always a plus in my eyes, man. It's just getting back to the community and, you know, just taking care of people that took care of you. So that's my thing on it.
I absolutely love that. And when you talked about the athlete that you coached, that advice that you gave him, that's one of the biggest things that is so important for student athletes to understand. You're not trying to change, people are not trying to change the entire, like change you totally, but there may be some things about yourself that you may have to tweak if you want that branding deal. And it could be something that is so minor, but it will give you the opportunity, like in that case where he landed that deal. And so just sharing that information, sometimes that's what student athletes need to hear from a coach, or whether it's a sports agent, or whether it's that teacher, or whoever is in that child's circle. So that was very powerful. And to the audience, everything that Coach Smith talked about too after that, like as far as giving back, a lot of what I tend to read and hear is about causes. So when he talked about the giving back, that is so important, because even should you make it on to that collegiate level or NFL level, a lot of those athletes, they do have a cause and they give back. And a lot of them give back to their community and they're invested. And I actually, that is a good way they can write off too, you know, on their taxes. You know, these causes. So that's something. So thank you for sharing that, because that is so important. So on that note, I just want to say before I close, I do have to let you know, you do have some people supporting you, and I have to let you know, Jamal Smith said, tell Smith Frenchie's here. So well, thank you for tuning in to watch us. And then Jamal Smith said home team. So, you know, I know we tend to say that. So yeah, you represent from the home team. And there's a Scholars Award. They were like, they were doing the muscle. So it was like, I guess they're like, hey, you know, you're doing your thing. So with that being said, thank you to everyone that tuned in, and even to those who will watch later, because I know sometimes people are not always able to watch. But this podcast segment will be on YouTube, so you can watch it anytime. Feel free to share with people. I am truly proud of this collaboration with Coach Smith. I typically every year in August do like a back to school segment, but this year the vision that God gave me, especially since I embarked on this journey as a sports agent, switch it up, because we still talked about academics, but we added that athletic sports piece. So I'm proud that you, and happy that you said yes. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for just saying yes, because I was like, I know you didn't truly know me, but I said, maybe he'll say yes because I'm a sorority sister.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah, so thank you for saying yes. And I truly hope that whoever watches this, there's something that we said that was helpful, that can help you on your journey as you try to navigate this NIL space. And so as we close out, thank you again. And thank you to those who tuned in. This is Dr. Shawania Marshall, the host of the Educated Black Female Perspective, with my guest, Coach Clinton Smith, from the coach's perspective. Everyone have a great night. Be blessed. And thank you again.